What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on LeBron James and some comments that he made. His post game interview after the Lakers played Detroit and they lost to Detroit, right? And the question was posed to LeBron about how, like, what advice would he have for younger players such as Cade Cunningham, right? And he said he mentioned the fact that like how hard fans and the media sometimes can be on you as a player, right? And that got me to thinking about and which I agree. Like sometimes the fans and the media they can get on players, and a lot of times probably most likely with the fans because the fans are just so passionate about their team or a specific player that they root for, right? They can be over the top sometimes, but it's just because of like I said because of the passion that they have for maybe that player or something like that. Like fans was like with Michael Jordan. Fans were like if you was a Michael Jordan fan, Michael Jordan fans were passionate because they love Michael Jordan. But Detroit fans, they was passionate on the other side, right? Because they hated Michael Jordan. New York Knicks fans was passionate because they hated Michael Jordan for because it was a rivalry thing back and forth, right? But even with that, I think there's like a certain amount of respect, on both sides with the fans because like if even if you're a New York Knicks fan, you still had to respect like the Mike's approach to the game and the way Mike like what Mike did for the sport of basketball overall, even Indiana Pacer fans or Reggie Miller, who was a big him and Mike Jordan was really couldn't they had some epic battles, right? But they respect each other because of what Mike brought to the table, what Reggie Miller brought to the table. And so when LeBron James was answering that question, it just got me to thinking that it's important to, in my opinion, it's important to have like a home base for not just for basketball players, but I'm speaking specifically about basketball players, right? I think it's important for them to have like a home base to fall back on because that allows them to be that's where they draw their strength from. Like when teams go on a road, they get beat down by the opponents and but you always can count on going back home to relax and recharge, and then you go back out on the road again. Um, and for LeBron James, who been in the league for like 20 something years, and he's getting close to retirement. I'd never seen a basketball player who's getting close to retirement have this much, like catch this much flack and be caught up so much and so much turmoil around him where people are like, it's just really polarizing. I never seen like when Kareem was on his retirement tour and he was going around the league to different cities, teams that he had beat, and teams that he had battles with over the years. It was time for everybody to just show their appreciation for what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had did for the game. Um, Kobe Bryant was the same way. Like when Kobe, everybody knew it was winding down for Kobe. People were starting to reflect on Kobe's career and just appreciating all the good times and all the memories that Kobe had created for the sport. But with LeBron James, I don't see that. Right. I just see around him just a lot of turmoil, a lot of just it's just he's very polarizing, right? And I think part of that is because he moved around from team to team, and I think that affects the legacy of a basketball player. Number one, and then number two, I just think that affects your psyche when you don't get a chance to be able to go somewhere and just be at home and feel like you can relax. You know, now right now, LeBron James, he do live in Los Angeles, right? That's where their permanent home is. But as to me, that's not his original home. His original home is Ohio, right? And the fact that I did a video a few days ago, and when fans were saying from Cleveland that they don't want him back there, and everybody knows that the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers is not interested. He really is not a fan of LeBron James, right? And part of that is LeBron fault, and part of that is what's his name, Dan Gilbert. Part of that is his fault too because of his attitude and some things that he said about LeBron James publicly, right? But when you look at the fan base, of when the fan base rejects you, that means that you did not, as an athlete, that means that you didn't really like endear yourself to that community, to that city. Um, in which I think is necessary. Even if LeBron James had moved to LA and he had did things around town to try to endear himself to that city and make himself a part of that community, I think people would accept you more. But when you have the attitude throughout your career that, well, I can take y'all or leave y'all, then later on, I think you'll feel the effects of that as once you come close to retirement. And I think now that LeBron James is not getting the send off and for him to be in the league for 20 years or 23 years, I think he do deserve like a send off. I'm not a big LeBron James fan though, but I do think that he has earned the right to have like the proper send off. And right now, to me, it just looks sad that he's holding on, and I think Michael Jordan kinda did the same thing. All great athletes, like, you gotta really like, if when a general manager go out to the pitcher's mound, sometimes you gotta take the ball out of their hand before as a general manager, because they'll pitch, as long as you allow them to pitch. And so it's the same thing, no different, with LeBron than it was for Michael Jordan. Kobe, if his health would allow him, he would have played until, somebody just took the ball from him, right? But at least those guys had a home base. Kobe has always been dedicated to to uh to Los Angeles. Mike will always be connected to Chicago, right? And just like Isaiah is with, Detroit, they'll always have that connection, Magic with LA. And it's, to me, I just think that this right here is just going to serve as a cautionary message for other franchise players that you don't want to, at the end of your career, you want to be able to have a home base, a fan base that's really passionate about you, a fan base that's going to really welcome you back, when it's time for you to come and retire and stuff like that. But LeBron James don't have that, you know. And I think part of the reason is why is because LeBron James kind of growing up, they said that LeBron James was, he kind of had it rough early on. Him and his mother, they said, used to sofa surf and stuff like that, stay with different family members for short periods of time, right? And so if you don't understand and you don't get a chance to build roots anywhere, then that kind of affects like your psyche about the way you think about being able to build roots somewhere. LeBron is just used to picking up and leaving, but at a certain point in time, you got to settle down somewhere, and you got to be able to establish roots somewhere. And in order to establish roots in any place, wherever you're gonna, you want to make that your forever home, you have to, I don't care who you are, you have to endear yourself to that community. If you're LeBron James, you just can't say, "Well, I can afford to live here, so I'm a plant my flag here and then get accepted." That it just don't work like that. People have a way of making you feel unwelcome, and so it don't even really matter how much money you have. And the good thing about it though is that he's in California, and there's a lot of people in California that are like transplants. People from all over the country go there, so that's one thing. But for him to have the type of career that he had, I think it would have been better for LeBron James to, in my opinion, to stay in California. I mean, to stay in at Cleveland for his entire career. And just imagine if he was in year 23 at Cleveland and he had won 2 or 3 championships, the kind of send off that they will be giving him, for a guy that's been in the league for 23 years, multiple championships with one team. I think that kind of sent off, man, I think is what LeBron James probably would have earned and deserved. But the fact that he moved around, I think that's going to hurt him. Just now on the other hand, look at somebody like Steph Curry, right? Like Steph Curry has been with his team for the entire time, won 4 championships, and those fans in Golden State love Steph Curry. And I think when he makes the decision to retire, um, that's going to be great for him because the fans get to show their appreciation. Like it's like Golden State fans will they will feel a part of that because they have been there from day one through all of the trials and the tribulations, the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys with Steph Curry, right? And so that when he decided to when Steph decide that he wants to retire, that'll be a special moment because those fans are going to they're going to allow him to feel the appreciation and the love that they have for Steph Curry. Whereas though I think if you move around from team to team, you kind of cheat yourself out of that. You fracture your fan base, right? And so you got fans all over the place, but nobody really feels loyal to you because they didn't get the opportunity to um to really gel or bond with you over that period of time, and so it's more like I think like his career has been more like being it's like being a mercenary. Like mercenaries don't typically get they don't really get like homecoming welcomes, right? Mercenaries because mercenaries seem like they're more selfish. They're like doing it for the glory and the money, not really, they're not like it's different if you was a Navy SEAL or something. Like if you're a Navy SEAL, you represent your country and you're doing it. It looks like you're doing it more for an unselfish reasons when you are a Navy SEAL. But if you're a mercenary, I just want the money. I'm doing it for the money, and I'm doing it for selfish reasons. Whereas though, and people don't really vibe with that, right? And so that's what I think. The younger generation coming in behind LeBron James, and they watched his career, and I think those guys really don't want to go down that road. And I don't see a lot of guys going down that road. I've seen Chris Paul, he went down that road, moving from team to team and not establishing roots with one team and just trying to build with one team. Chris Paul could have, he had the abilities. Paul could have been like Isaiah Thomas, like stayed in Detroit for the whole time and maybe won 1 or 2 championships, wherever the team he decided to stay with for his entire career. And which I think who did he? I'm not sure if it was Charlotte. I think Charlotte drafted Chris Paul, right? Just imagine if he had to stay there for his entire career. He just would have. It just would have been a different level of appreciation with one fan base, because that fan base feels special because y'all have something that he can't, that another fan base can't claim. Like Chris Paul played for 6 teams, at least 6 teams that I can count. And so whatever he did for each one of those teams, he did it in every city. So nothing special from New Orleans to Charlotte to Phoenix to the Spurs, nothing special with any of those fan bases. The same thing he did in Charlotte, he did with the Spurs. The same thing he did with the Spurs, he did with Phoenix. So there's nothing special there. So there's no really that connection, right? And so same thing with Kevin Durant when he retired. Imagine if Kevin Durant had stayed with OKC and won 1 or 2 championships at OKC, and now he's ready for retirement. That like that fan base I think people underestimate that, and so we're seeing LeBron James go through something like he's paying for the fact that he moved around from team to team. And I think with a guy who has had the kind of career that LeBron James had, I just think that he really I think he would want more, and I think he deserved more after having a 20-year career. So that's my take on it. Y'all make sure to like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to leave a comment, and I will check you all out in the next video. Peace.